What's up, guys? Welcome to a new episode of Talking Figures. As always, I am Tony, being joined by a nice gentleman here. You guys know him as Robert's Infinite Realms. That's where you can find him on his YouTubes and his Instagrams. You can find out how he feels about particular toy lines, comic books, characters, and all that other stuff. I'm very proud to sit here and talk with him today. It's the first time I'm actually going to sit here and talk to him face to face. I usually engage with him in the chats, and he's a great supporter of my channel. I thank you very much for that. Please welcome to the show the one and only Robert of Robert's Infinite Realms. What's up, Robert? It's good to see you, man.
Thank you, Tony, and I'm so glad to be able to talk to you finally.
Well, it's an absolute honor because I've been watching a lot of your stuff lately, and I got to say we're kind of eye to eye on a lot of the opinions that you have, especially about the current stuff with Hasbro going on with all that maximum bullshit.
Yeah, that's
So
what I've been calling it too.
it definitely is, man. I got to tell you, they're going to rape us over the coals. They are going to make sure that they get every single red cent out of us. But I think
Yep.
a lot of us are starting to wake up to the bullshit, which is good because $55 for a figure that you were already spending $25 for, and a couple of points of articulation is kind of bullshit, man.
I mean, they're characters I'll cross a paywall for, but I have so many Spider-Mans, I can't. No, I can't do
Yeah,
it.
yeah. I feel the same exact way, man. It's like how many more and the balls on them to do an all Spider-Man wave right after.
Oh yeah,
I felt like that was such a slap in the face. But let's not make this a Hasbro pile on
yeah,
session. Let's get to
yeah.
the questions for you, bud. And I'm going to start right where I always start with all my guests, and that is, when did you start collecting? Where did you start collecting? And what line got you into collecting?
Okay, I brought a visual aid. I just
Nice.
recently acquired this. This is the first toy I remember owning that I cared about. Um,
Right on, little truck.
yep, Adventure People. One,
Adventure people. Okay.
Yeah, Fisher Price 118th line. That's the camping set. I've just got the Jeep, the figures,
Okay.
and the tent. I'm looking for the canoe.
Right on.
Um, yeah, but I don't know what happened to that set. It was just like, but that was the first toy I ever remember loving. It was just like, there was something about that set, and then I got like the newscaster set and the fire truck
Yeah,
and
yeah.
a couple others,
I
and
like
it
the
was like,
idea of play sets and everything that comes together with that
yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
and it was like that was the jumping on point, and then moved on to $6 Million Man because I really love that show.
Right on.
Um, and Mego.
Okay.
I always say Mego because I think Lego, Mego.
Mego. Yeah.
But they had the superheroes, and I started comics really young. It's like the first thing I remember reading is a comic book.
Okay. Okay.
It was Iron Man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like I always read comics. There was a little store near my house
Right.
that had, those 3 packs you can get for like 50 cents.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they always had them, and it was like
Yeah.
it would just grab tons.
Definitely was, one of my go-tos as well. Because
Yeah,
whenever I would go to the stores, my mother would always be like, "Alright, grab something off the shelf." And it was always the, cheapest three-pack comics that I can get my hands on because I knew she would say
mhm,
yes. I knew that it was an easy grab.
yeah, and then, of course, Star Wars came out, and we're off to the races.
Yeah, that's it. That's the end of that. Did you
Yeah,
so you started very young, let's I
mhm,
guess say, so because if we're going adventure people that you were it was the first toy that you truly appreciated.
yeah.
That toy that you have in your hand, is that, something that you bought recently, or was it
Yeah,
yours from your child?
I just got it, like, a month ago. I just
Okay,
I got
okay,
the figures with it too.
yeah.
I know they fall out, so I just didn't put them in it.
I mean, yeah. So
Yeah.
so you really literally got it for nostalgic purposes is what you basically
Yeah, and
telling me.
that's rare for me. It's like I'm thinking,
Yeah,
like, this year, I'm probably gonna grab a couple of these Adventure People sets. I love what
yeah,
Scuba P says about them. It's like, if you run over them with your car, you need to go get your car fixed
yeah.
because they're that durable, and they really are.
Yeah, it reminds me of the old WWE, the LJN rubber
Mhm.
figures. The ones that I felt like you could literally commit a murder with and get away with it because it was
Yeah.
like a literal murder weapon. If I could tell you how many times me and my brother got into fights and one of those things got winged across a room and everybody had to duck because it was going to break something if it went off and hit, you know.
Right.
Toys back then were built to last, weren't they?
Yeah, exactly, and it was like, I mean, these Fisher Prices are so tough. I've
Yeah,
rarely found any that have, like, got major damage, and usually it's like a dog or something.
Yeah, it's like it's I think nowadays they just kinda know that you're gonna wind up replacing it, so they make it cheap as shit, trying to speed up
Yeah.
the process. It's fucking annoying, man, 'cause I miss those toys that last. You know, the
Yeah.
ones that you can slam against a wall. Not to say that you should. That's to say you should do that shit, but if you did, at least you know that it's not gonna, break into pieces on you.
Yeah, and, like, back in the day when they used to make, Hot Wheels out of real metal.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I remember those bad boys.
Yeah, I've still
Hell
got a bunch of those.
hell yeah. So you collect everything, so that's just right out of the box. Is it everything, or are you right now specific to, old school toys like Mego, Venture People, and things like
Um,
that?
I'm kinda all over the place.
You are? Okay.
Yeah,
Alright.
and it's not like, not everything, but I definitely don't exclude things either. It's like, most recently is I'm trying to rebuild this Marvel Legends collection that I sold off when I got desperate,
Okay.
for money
Okay.
and, that passion to eat, you
Yeah.
know? You know, um, but
Goddamn passion to eat.
yeah. I mean, at the time, I'd gotten laid off a job. They were challenging me on my unemployment. And it
Yeah.
was like, okay, what do I do? I will go to the library, upload pictures, and sell off my Marvel Legends. And that's how I ate for several months before
Months,
the
yeah.
unemployment got settled.
Oh, yeah,
And
dude.
then, yeah, and then like I kind of regretted it, was what it really was.
Yeah.
And it was around 2018. My
Okay.
daughter was about to be born. My mom gave me a gift of going to um, Lexington Comic Con, which is near me.
Right on.
And I was there and I found the original Captain America from the Toy Biz line, which I had sold, of course. I'd
Yeah.
sold for a lot more. And I'm like looking, it's like 10 bucks. And I'm like, oh, I really love this figure. I'm going to buy it back. And that kind of started me on this, like,
Yeah.
I want my Marvel Legends back.
It's my hell yeah. Hell
Yeah.
yeah.
Even though I'm
Now
mostly a 1/18th guy.
oh,
it was-
okay.
Yeah. But I really wanted my Marvel Legends back because I just love that line.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah. But I also,
when you sold them off, had you been collecting, like, from the Toy Biz all the way up until Hasbro at that point when you had sold them off, or was it Toy
yeah,
Biz one?
I stopped at the Hasbro part, even though I did buy a few from the Hasbro when
Okay.
Hasbro took over.
Yeah.
Like just my fave characters like She-Hulk and Thor.
Okay. Okay.
Um, but yeah, I had collected all through the Toy Biz
Alright,
and
right on.
had almost everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Toy Biz figures, everybody who comes on this show, they all speak highly of that particular line, the Toy
yeah,
Biz Marvel
at the
Legends.
time it was so amazing. Today you look at it and it's like, "Oh, that's really dated."
Yeah. Yeah.
But at the time it was just amazing. And I mean, I also had the 5-inch Toy Biz line.
Okay.
Yeah, I was in that too because that was in that stage of it was like, "Oh, we're getting the Marvel toys we wanted as a kid."
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I was in college at the time, and I was just like, "Yeah, I'm gonna grab a few of these," and I ended up grabbing a whole bunch.
Yeah.
And I did
I
sell those off, but I just those are cool for what they were, but it was like, I
yeah.
don't want you know, I want the characters, I don't want the same exact toy.
Oh, yeah, I got you now. So
Yeah.
now you said you're a 118 guy. Does that mean you have, I would assume, the GI Joes and
G.I.
things of that
Joe
nature? You got all that
yeah,
stuff?
G.I. Joe, Real American Hero is one of my favorite lines of all time.
Okay. So that
Yeah.
I would assume that's your, greatest collection right now, or is there
Oh, yeah,
any?
yeah, that's, it's all in bins right now, but yeah, that's my biggest part of my collection. What I
Okay.
wanna do is move down the hall. Um, Bit of a long story, but, when I met my wife,
Yeah.
uh, you know, we moved in together and she had 3 kids, so it's
Okay.
like, "Okay, I'll give up my office and box up everything,"
Yeah, yeah.
for her 3 kids, and then 2 of the kids are gone now. They've moved
Okay.
out. So I'm kinda like and we had a kid together too.
Yeah.
So our kid is in my old office now. And I'm
Okay.
like going, there's that other bedroom we use for storage. I think I might want to move into there.
Yeah, why not? Hell yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking. I'm going to line the walls with shelves and just put everything up.
You definitely should. One thing I've learned, because I got a lot of shit in bins too.
Hmm.
Um, you wind up, I don't know, maybe because I said this to Abby last week and he kind of agreed, but I start to feel more like a hoarder than a
Yeah,
collector because it's just bins everywhere. It's not like I can't admire the collection. Like I can't
right.
just sit around and look at everything on the shelf and be like, hey, I love this character or look how cool this looks because everything is just in bins under a bed or in a garage. And I look around, I go, now you look more like a hoarder. You don't look like a collector. And I think we all feel that same way. Whereas once you get it out of the bin and onto a shelf, it to me it's not no more a hoarder. Now you're a
Right.
collector. It's on the shelf. It's displayed as it should be. I think the biggest travesty to all of us collectors is the fact that we have to start putting shit in bins because of space.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that. I was watching that show, and it was like literally you said to Abby, it's like, "What do I need with Cloak and Dagger?" And I'm like, "I need Cloak and Dagger." I literally turned around. I was turned away from the TV, and I looked at it and I said, "Tony, I need Cloak and Dagger," which I have Cloak and Dagger, so it's not a big deal. But,
But it's like I was
that's
one of those things where I get like that, where I'm like,
yeah,
all right, at this point now, you're just buying because either you want to keep up with the Joneses, you want to keep up with everybody, or it's a sickness, like a serious sickness, and it's I gotta have, I gotta have, I gotta have. So it's like one of
right.
those things where you got to start. As I said, the greatest enemy of any collector is space. It's not so much
Yeah,
money. We can always make money. It's space. You run out of space. You can't get space back once it's gone. The only way to get it back is to get rid of what is there. And unfortunately, if we get rid of it, what happens? A couple years later, fuck, I shouldn't have gotten rid of that. Like I
mhm,
shouldn't I shouldn't have sold that one. Right. And we always so it's to me, there's such a fine line between collector and hoarder,
yeah,
so you just gotta dance it and understand your exact max point, if that
right.
makes sense.
Yeah, but, that got me thinking, it's like, I really love a lot of the late '70s, early '80s Z-list characters.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah. So, it's like Cloak and Dagger is a good one. That's a real
Yeah,
good one
yeah.
because you either know who that is or don't.
Exactly.
You know? Another fave of mine is Sleepwalker, and I got so excited when they made a Sleepwalker Marvel Legend.
Yeah. You know what the funny thing is like, and I said this on a recent one too, whereas you don't think you care about those characters until you see them.
Mhm.
So like if they didn't ever release those characters, I'd be like, Sleepwalker, why? But then you see the figure, and automatically I go, well, I don't know his story, but I wanted to find out because the toy is so cool. Like
Yeah.
you like almost like I forget what the artwork was like, and then like the
Mhm.
figure kind of reminds me of like a comic book cover that I had because I remember having one of the very first Sleepwalker comics, and I remember the cover art, and I remember it being so like very interesting is
Yeah.
the best word I can describe it. But I never really it didn't catch my attention, until the action figure. And then I went back and I started kind of, reading and shit like that. And you're like, oh fuck, this character is much cooler than I gave it credit for. I didn't really
Yeah, I
give
think
it credit.
Sleepwalker is one of those characters that, like, once people discover that character, like, "Oh, that's cool."
Yeah.
But until
Yeah.
then, it's like, I don't know,
Oh,
he
he
never
looks like
caught
a
on
weird alien.
somehow.
Like people when people see him at first, they're like he looks like an alien. He's got a green head. You
Yeah,
don't really think that it's like a cool character because you're not giving it the proper time to delve into it. But at the same time, it's hard to get those, like you just said, Z list
yeah,
characters over when you have such a high A list.
right.
So it's one of those things where you're reading Iron Man, X Men, Spider Man, this one, that one. By the time you get to Sleepwalker, you're like, I got enough. Like,
And Sleepwalker for me came along at the perfect time because it was like I was a big comic fan, but I was like, "Oh, I'm a little burned out on this and that," and it
oh,
was like
yeah,
something fresh, something new, and something original.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
was like, "Oh, this is cool." And
hell
I
yeah,
was so disappointed that he kinda just fell into obscurity.
yeah. Unfortunately, that's what happens with those guys. They
Yeah,
don't. You hope. It's one of those things. I guess they throw it against a wall, hoping that it's gonna be the next one that jumps into that A bracket.
right.
Just not enough people, not enough interest or whatever. I feel that way about Moon Knight sometimes. Like, I know a lot of people like Moon Knight, but sometimes I feel like,
I love
why
Moon
is he that?
Knight.
Yeah, and a lot of people love him. He's a cool
Yeah,
character, but like I always think to myself, like when I was a kid, didn't really hear much about Moon Knight because there was so many other top Marvel characters.
mhm.
that he falls right in between the cracks. You don't really, but then you discover him, and you're
Yeah.
like, whoa, where was this all my life? Essentially,
Right.
like
Yeah.
it's that's one of my favorite things, dude. Is discovering old shit like now.
Yeah.
It's like that is new again to me, and I guess that's if it's new to you, then it's new,
Right.
So if you
Exactly.
just discover for the first time, then it's new to you. So it's like one of those things where the um the Moon Knight, which one was it? I think it was the Mezco black and white one, where he's mostly black with like the white accents.
Hmm.
That one got me interested in Moon Knight. Like I
Yeah.
bought that figure and I was like, "Well, let me give this guy a shot." And after I read everything, I was like, "Well, this is a pretty cool story, man. And that's pretty badass too."
Yeah.
It's
Moon
every
Knight. I always liked Moon Knight. I always
yeah,
was like, people call him like the sort of Marvel Batman, and I'm like, there's
yeah,
a little more going on there.
yeah. Once
Yeah,
they want like
there are similarities, yes, but
yeah,
you
you
know,
hear it and then you're like, really? Because that's what I used to hear. He's just Marvel's Batman, and I'm like, really? And but I think it's because of the whole aesthetic.
yeah,
The nighttime stuff and all that stuff. Once I the first couple of sentences I read the synopsis of him, and it's like a moon god Khonshu and all this. I was like, that's not Batman. I
right,
was like, what the hell are these people talking about?
yeah, yeah. I agree. I mean, I can remember reading Moon Knight a long time ago, and I was just like, "Oh, this is cool."
Yeah,
And like people would say that to me. It's like, "Ah, he's just Batman." I'm like, "Did you read it?"
yeah. I know you. We didn't read the same book. That's
Yeah,
I've said that a few times to
it's
people. Yeah,
kind of like when Iron Man came out for the MCU,
yeah.
and people. I remember getting in an argument with this guy. He's like, "Oh, look how Disney made a Z-list character into a hero." I'm like, "How is Iron Man a Z-list
Taylor
character?
is an
He was
Avenger.
the founder of the Avengers.
Yeah,
He's had a comic all the way up from 1963 to now."
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they relaunched it and rebooted it, but yeah, he's always had a comic book.
He's
That's not
always
a
been
Z-list character.
hell no, no. When they made Iron Man, because he was one of my favorite characters. I was always a big human over like superpower.
Mhm.
That's why I like Batman, I like Iron Man. Um, so Iron Man was always big for me. So when they made a movie, I was like, "Oh shit, Iron Man!" And I remember
Oh,
people
yeah.
saying, "Why Iron Man?" Like I was like, "It's gonna be a pretty awesome movie." I was like, "You guys don't know Iron Man. Obviously, you didn't read it because in your mind, a lot of those. I think it's those what would you call them? I guess like layman's where they just watch the cartoons.
Right.
They're like the top ones. They see X Men or Spider Man, and if it's not that, then I don't want to like I don't want to go see it or I don't care. But it's like, yo, man, Iron Man is funny too. You say that because a lot of people when it came out thought it was going to suck, and it
Yeah.
was the catalyst in which became the billion-dollar Marvel industry, and it was all bred from a Z list in their mind, Z list Iron Man, because a lot of people didn't even want like the studios didn't want to make that movie because of how bad superhero movies were tarnished at that point, and they said Iron Man. You're not even coming at us with like a new Spider-Man movie or something like that. You're coming with Iron Man, and I
Yeah.
don't even think they gave it a proper chance. So to see what it did for Marvel, essentially movies, Iron Man,
Mhm.
man, like I said, I'm happy to see that he got that just due because I think he did.
Yeah.
Even Captain America, because a lot of people used to shit on Captain America.
Oh, yeah, and
You
Cap
know,
was and, both of those characters, I think one thing about them is, like, Marvel itself did a lot of disservice to both of those characters,
yeah, yeah,
and, I mean, I was there with the teenage Tony Stark,
okay,
took over, and it's a terrible storyline, and it's like, "Why are you doing this?" And,
yeah,
they did several really good and then really bad. They would be, like, back to back. It would be, like, this really good Captain America storyline, and then they do a really horrible one.
shit one, yeah,
Yeah, and it would be like, "Why are you doing this to Cap, man?"
yeah, so
And a lot of it was editorial and stuff like that, and then you can go back and read about it.
yeah,
Spidey somehow has survived some of the bad editorial decisions. Clone Saga, but
yeah. I will say this though, like
okay.
if the if the character is awesome, I think it'll always stand bad runs.
Yeah,
Like it won't matter if the run is bad as long as the character is awesome. It'll bounce back at
right.
some point down in history, or down in the future. But let's get back to toys real quick because you said you discovered Star Wars and you said the rest was history. So
Oh,
now
yeah.
you start collecting Star Wars, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
Um,
very young. I mean, right when it came out, I'm the only person I know who has seen every Star Wars movie to date on opening weekend.
Jesus Christ, but that's
Yeah,
impressive.
and I'm including the animated Stone Clone Wars in that.
Yeah, goddamn,
Yeah,
that's
I
crazy.
actually went out to the theater and watched that opening weekend. I was like, it was just okay, but,
Yeah.
you know.
I mean, the show, I felt like the show made up for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It was like,
you know?
I when I watched it, I was like, "Okay, there's enough here to work with, and maybe the
Yeah,
show's
yeah.
gonna be a lot better," but yeah, this shouldn't have been in a theater.
No, yeah, no, that was definitely should have been a straight to TV
Mhm.
release. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So now after Star Wars, what was the next line you got into, or was it just Star Wars all the way through?
Star Wars, and then it was like He-Man and
Okay.
G.I. Joe had a 1-2 punch on me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I
Yeah,
had
it was
some. Yeah,
like both of them hit me at the same time. I don't think
yeah,
my memory is they didn't hit at the same time, but for some reason, I discovered both at the same time, and it was like,
yeah,
talk about 2 polar opposites.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's very true.
Um, I really love the books that came with the original He-Man figures where he was a barbarian.
So that's badass. I
Yeah,
remember
those
them
were
vaguely.
badass, and I'm like,
Yeah,
"Oh god, that reminds me of Conan in a good way."
yeah, yeah. Because
Because I
they
also
were
back to comics, almost everything relates back to
like back to
comics, but
comics. Yeah,
yeah, it's like,
my
"Oh."
brother, I got my brother's hand me downs. Like,
Excuse me.
He-Man and G.I. Joe was a hand me down from my brother.
Yeah.
So, like, I understood the cartoons and stuff like that. My father would put them on because once he saw me playing with the toys,
Mhm.
he would go out of his way to make sure that, like, "Hey, He-Man's on," or in the mornings, I always tell this story, he would wake us up to G.I. Joe 'cause for some
Yeah.
reason, would play at 6 a.m. every morning, and we would hear the G.I. Joe theme to let us know that it was time to go to school. That's how
Yeah.
he would wake us up.
Both cartoons I absolutely love, by the way.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Although, sometimes when I go back and watch He-Man, I can always go back and watch G.I. Joe because I always say feel like G.I. Joe holds up pretty well. He-Man, sometimes you're like, "Ooh, that one's hard to get through." Like, that
There are
episode is
parts, yeah, exactly. I My wife got me the box set of He-Man,
okay.
and I'll put it on, and it's like, "Ooh, that episode. Oh god." I can't think of a
Yeah, you're
specific
like,
one
"Oof, I
right
don't know.
now, but
Yeah, I don't know how I
yeah,
watched that one as a kid."
yeah. But I remember it as a kid going, "Oh, this is a bad one."
Yeah. Exactly. But so I got into those 2 lines right around like you just said, right around the same time. It's like a 1-2 punch with my brother. But then my mother bought me Ninja Turtles, and then that was it for
Mhm.
me. Once the
Yeah.
Ninja Turtles and we're Ninja Turtles and pro wrestling. That kinda once that showed up in my life, that was it for me. That was all I needed.
Yeah, and for me, pro wrestling, it was, like, really odd because it was like I live in a weird part of the world. I live in Kentucky on the Virginia
Yeah.
border.
Okay.
We were one of the first places in the world to have cable TV.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, and it was out
Nice.
of necessity. We could not pick up any other signals, you know? And it was like we had TBS,
Yeah,
with
okay.
6:05 on Saturday. That
NWA?
that became a big thing. Yeah, NWA
Right.
became a big thing. And then right after that, USA with WWF, and it's like,
Yeah, yeah.
here I am in a really into comic books and superheroes. And I look up and I'm like going, wait a minute, this is real life
Mhm.
versions of this. I love it. And, I really got into wrestling as well.
I just remember my brother said to me, you like those superheroes?" I was reading, like, I had the Marvel cards.
Uh-huh.
Not the cards, I'm sorry, those are in the '90s. I had a comic book and I was reading, and my brother said to me, "You like that, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "You gotta watch this."
Yep.
Put on WrestleMania 4, and
Oh,
I was like, never forget. He goes, "You like that guy, right? Macho Man Randy Savage." He was walking. I mean, it was the first time I even said to my brother as a kid. I was very young. I turned around to him and I go, "Why did he change his gear 4 times?"
God.
And my brother looked at me and he goes, "What?" I go, "Macho Man. He changed his outfit 4
Mhm.
different times." And my brother didn't even catch that.
Yeah.
And he goes, I think you're gonna like this stuff." And then from that point, I was like, "When is this on?" And I watched every us, Monday night
Mhm.
primetime wrestling, and like you said, we had cable very young as well, so I got TBS as well. So my father would be like, "You like that wrestling?" And he'd put on, the Superstation. He put on fucking NWA, or when it became WCW, obviously.
Yeah.
And I started watching that shit all the time. I mean, as soon as I could, as soon as I saw it, that was my first impression.
Yeah.
Whoa, this is like a comic book on TV. Like, even the outfits. I was like, "This
Yeah.
is crazy." I was like,
Yeah,
I was
and
I
it's
was
like
all in.
I struggle with it seems like, comic book figure collectors
Yeah,
have a real issue with wrestling. And it seems like wrestling figure collectors have a real issue with comic book collectors. I'm like going, y'all are the same.
fucking they don't trust me. I know.
Yeah. You know, and
Yeah,
I'm always fascinated by that divide. And there are tons of YouTube channels I watch who exemplify that divide. And I'm going, hmm,
yeah.
I don't understand it. But
Well, the one thing
okay,
I
I'm
will
going to
say
watch it because it's
the one thing
fascinating.
I will say, and I'm noticing it now, is I'm discovering a lot of the people in terms of action figure guys that I'm speaking to are a lot of them are wrestling fans. A lot
Hmm.
of them, because even when I was on 3POA, I was very I was very scared to talk wrestling because I didn't
I
want his
noticed that.
people. Yeah, I didn't want his people to be like, "What the hell is this bullshit?" So I
Yeah.
didn't want to like push them away, or I don't want to hurt his. I don't want to hurt his channel in any way. By he goes, I didn't realize that Tony was such a wrestling guy, you know. But then when I looked over at the chat and I'm seeing, no, no, let's talk more wrestling. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I was
oh,
one of
okay,
those
so
guys
maybe there
too.
are more use than I thought.
Yeah. Yeah. I was one of those guys. It's like, no, no, no. I didn't know you. I didn't know you had actually wrestled and gotten
Yeah,
hurt in the ring
yeah,
or anything. And the whole thing you did on 3POA, I was like, oh, wow. This is a
yeah,
side. I knew you were in wrestling, but I didn't know you had wrestled.
yeah, yeah. It was a short time in my life, but it was one like I said, when I discovered it, I had to learn everything about it.
Hmm.
It wasn't like it was weird. Like it was a fascination that went beyond the suspension of disbelief.
Yeah.
Like I was able to suspend my disbelief and be a mark and cheer for the Hogans and the Warriors and all that
Hmm.
stuff. But there was something like I would ask, like I said, even when I was a kid, I would ask my brother or my father questions, and they would my father would say, and he would say this to me a lot. Why are you asking that? It's fake. Like that would be the question I'm asking. I would ask a question like, well, he did this in the ring, but then he said this, or like stuff like that. I would catch
Yeah.
like the plot holes or this and that. And he goes, well, it's fake. It's wrestling. Just watch it and shut up. It was that kind of stuff. Like, so that's when the older I got, the worse that interest got. Like
Hmm.
the more it got, I was like, I have to find out more. I have to learn more. And I don't want to be a dirt sheet guy. Like I don't want to know who's going to win before they win. I want to know the storyline,
Yeah.
why they're writing it, why that all that stuff, booking, and that kind of stuff. And that's when I was just like, I got hit, that new generation attitude era, and it was in that point I was like, this is where your life is going. So you got to learn it, like you have to. It's like it was like an earworm. It wouldn't go away until I learned. So I had to get in the ring and learn. So
Yeah.
I went and I learned, and I was trained. And I remember I remember Tony DeVito, when I was training with him. He said to me,
Hmm.
I usually got to tell people 2 or 3 times how to do something. He goes, you get it after the first try. He
Oh,
goes, I'm
cool.
not. He goes, I'm kind of confused by it. He goes, so don't like, because he was a little apprehensive at first for me because he didn't understand. I was getting it, but then I said to him, I was like, sir, with all due respect, I said, I've been studying this since I'm a fucking kid. I was like, I have rewind things, put things in slow mo to understand why they were doing certain moves, how they were landing without getting hurt, why he was throwing punches and nobody was getting hurt. I was trying to see how they were doing it. So I was like, I studied it from that point on until now. I just need you to tell me that I'm doing it right. That's basically what I said to him. And he was just like, okay. He goes, well, if I don't correct you, it means you're doing it right. And I said, thank you, sir. And that was it. And like I said, I became a wrestler. I wrestled for a little bit, then I got hurt. And once I got hurt, there was a trust issue that I developed with other wrestlers because now I was like, I put my life in this guy's hands and he fucking almost killed me, almost paralyzed me. Right. And it was
Yeah.
a shock to the system. Your brain is a weird fucking muscle, man. And once it doesn't trust, it does not trust.
Right.
So and that's what happened to me. I started to have a trust problem, and then it was as if the universe was saying you're not meant to be a performer. Because then I got hurt on like my day job,
Hmm.
and then that's when I went to the production side of things because I think my brain and my body were disagreeing with each other. My body wanted to do it, but my brain was like, "You're meant for better things.
Yeah.
Like you're meant for other things, bud." And I think that's That's what led me. But I'm glad I did it because now when I talk to wrestlers, they don't look at me like a mark.
Hmm.
They don't look at me like I'm just some fan who thinks he knows.
Yeah.
I was there. I was in your position. I was in the ring. I did it. So I know at least I want to get over too. I know how to that feeling of fuck. I want to get over. Like I want to get booked. I know that feeling because I had it. So like I think that kind of worked in my favor when I transitioned. But buddy, from an early age, man, that's all I wanted to do in my life, and that's why I always tell guys we bring them when I bring them on here and they talk toys and they have such a deep rooted connection to whether it's comics or GI Joe, anything. You know, I always say like it may not be the same because you like you said, comic book people tend to like frown on one and these
Hmm.
people frown on the other. We you may frown on it, but let me tell you something. There are parallels where if you just looked past the shit you don't like and looked at the parallels, you'll start to realize that oh fuck, that's actually pretty cool,
Yeah.
and you won't be so close minded.
And also, I'm in a fun part of the world because it's like I had NWA would go to Kingsport, which is like
Hell yeah,
a couple
okay,
hours from me.
yeah,
WWF would go to Lexington, which is a couple hours
yeah,
from me.
yeah.
And then on top of that, you had um, Lawler and Jarrett in
Memphis,
CWA
yeah,
in Memphis.
yeah.
That was almost local to me.
Yeah, hell yeah.
When Smoky Mountain Wrestling was around, that was like 30 minutes from my house. They would do a lot of
Fucking
shows.
A. Hell yeah, dude, that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's like there's like so much wrestling in this part of the world.
It really is. And Jerry
Yeah,
Lawler was
and
the king. He would literally was the king down
yeah.
there in
Oh yeah, he
Memphis.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people, I remember when he had his feud with ECW, and
Yeah,
it's
that's
like, I hate hardcore wrestling. I'm like, really?
great. Yeah.
You know, I've seen you. I know better.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've seen you
I
live. I know
yeah.
better.
I love his take. When I met Jerry, because I met him a
Oh,
few
you met
times.
him?
I met him a few times, yeah, doing
Yeah,
the
I've seen
production
him
stuff.
live, but I never actually met him.
Yeah, big baseball fan. So as long as you talk
Yep.
baseball with Jerry, he'll have a grown up conversation, which won't treat you like a mark. It's one thing I
Okay.
learned. Yeah. So we're talking one time. And we asked you. Somebody asked us like, "Wow, why JDCW so much?" And he literally looked at us and he just laughed and he goes, "Well, when I saw it, it literally was crap." He said it was crap to me because I'm in WWF. He goes, "I'm in the big league. I'm watching like the best of the best go." Now
Mhm.
here I am watching like you see that shit and you're like, "Why you people?" You know. So, but he respected them. But he was just like I knew, and he's a great heel, so he knew what to say. He knew how to
Yeah.
work people. So it was one of those things where you know, it's all derived from some truth.
Mhm.
Yeah, he respected a lot of guys there and stuff, but when he saw like you're in a bingo hall, but shit, like to him it was shit. Unless you're here, it's shit. So there's some kind of truth to it. But yeah, man, he was cool to talk to. Yeah, and like I said, I just when he came to WWF, I didn't even know who he was.
Yeah.
And I think it was my father or my brother. They were like, "Oh, that's the king. Like that's the king. He was the king in the South." You got to, and that was the first time I had been introduced to Pro Wrestling Illustrated.
Mhm.
Like I never had it because the king showed up in '93. So at the time I'm 10 or 11. And my brother goes, "Here, read this." Because
Yeah,
at the
I'm a
time I'm
little
only
older
getting
than you, by the
yeah.
way.
So I'm getting a WWF magazine. That's all I'm reading because I'm in New York. So we're only I'm a WWF guy through and through. So my brother was the one who started bringing Pro Wrestling Illustrated and said, "Here, read this." And I started to see, oh God, Jesus Christ, Jerry King had all these belts and this and that, and
Mhm.
Japanese, Japan has a what the fuck? I didn't understand the world of pro wrestling. And like I said, it was like these booms went off in my head. I'll never forget them. Macho Man in '88. The Pro Wrestling Illustrated was like a golden aura around it. When he
Yeah.
handed it to me, it was like opening up the book to the world.
Yeah.
Essentially, I'm like, oh my God. It was one of those things where I feel when you get a comic or an action figure that you've been dying for.
Yeah.
You have that, you see the aura around it. Like you're like, I've been waiting for this my entire life, and you've just
Mhm.
handed me the key. You know what I'm saying? So like I'm glad I that brings me to my next question. Out of your entire collection that you have, what would be the grail piece? What would be the piece that you save no matter what?
I've thought about this question because you ask it to everybody, and
Yeah.
it's a very special piece because of who bought it for me
Okay.
and the circumstances around it. My grandfather never rich. Um, Later in life, he was doing a little bit better, but not at all rich. And he traveled around the country, and for a lot less than most people should be traveling around the
Yeah.
country, he would drive. And it was Star Wars had just come out,
Okay.
and he said, "What do you want?" As he was coming by for my birthday, he was going to be in town, which was like 3 hours out of his way, is in town for him.
Yeah.
He said, "What do you want for your birthday?" And I went, Millennium Falcon. And my mom gasped when I said that on the phone in the dining. The phone was
Yeah. Yeah.
wired in the dining room. I said he asked what I wanted,
Yeah. He said,
you know, and I remember my mom grabbing the phone from me, going, "Don't do that, don't do that."
yeah. You don't have to do
I'll
that.
be damned if my grandfather didn't show up and give me the Millennium Falcon.
Hell yeah, man. That's all.
And I still have it almost 100% complete.
Hell yeah.
It's in a bin right now. If I could get to it, that's what I'd grab,
That's what you save. Hell
just
yeah.
because my grandfather gave it to me.
That's a beautiful thing, man. The
Yeah,
sentimental
and
stuff is beautiful.
it's one of my most prized possessions, and that's why I don't take it out of the bin. It's like I don't want any. It's dirty as hell,
Yeah.
just from being out since 1978.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, and there's like I left batteries in it for too long, and there's corrosion outside the
Okay.
battery thing, and like,
Yeah.
yeah, there's a whole lot of wrong with that toy. But it's like, dang it, that was given to me my grandfather. I'm like, no, that's precious to me. That's very important. Now, he bought me some other toys later, but it's like that one was the biggest and the most incredible one, and I was so into it when he bought it
Yeah.
for me. I'm like, you
You
know,
played the shit out of that thing, didn't you?
oh hell yeah, I did. I mean, that is probably my most played with playset anything ever.
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Well, sometimes I always think about this when I was a kid. I had a right before we moved, right? When I was
Mhm.
a kid, we lived in Queens, New York. We moved up to upstate New York.
Yeah.
I had a book bag filled with action figures,
Mhm.
and it was like my prized possessions. I was a little older. When we moved, I was like 13, 14, but I knew that I was going to keep those,
Right.
eventually display them, whatever. Well, they got lost in the move, right? And my whole life was devoted to finding not all of them, but the
Yeah.
ones that really kind of touched my heart.
Yeah.
And last year we were at Terrific Con, me and my wife, and we were just at some random booth, right? And I'm looking in like they have those the bins with the fucking loose figures, and I'm just moving some shit around. I don't care, don't give a fuck. Who cares? Who cares? And I came across the Savage Dragon toy, right?
Oh,
Yeah,
Legendary Heroes one?
yeah.
Yeah,
And
I just
no, no,
got
no. The
I just
the
got that about 6 months ago, and I same thing. I had sold it.
yeah.
I forgot how much I really liked that figure.
No, I don't know if it's Legendary Heroes. I think it was the McFarlane, like all
Oh, okay.
the '90s one when he's in the cop outfit, when the comic book was like when Image was like
Oh, okay.
the shit, right? So I literally move all these figures, and just as I move it, it's like almost like you hear the music. Oh, I like look down. I was like, oh, it was the one that when I lost that fucking book bag, that was the figure I was in my head going, I
Mm.
lost Savage Dragon. I was like,
Oh,
motherfucker. Like, so now to have it again, it just the sentiment. I know it's not mine. It's like
right.
you have yours. You have the one your grandfather gave you, but just the sentimental value alone, or just the remembrance of the toy. I couldn't imagine if I found that book bag today. Like I might be reduced to tears
Yeah.
because of the meaningness to me. So when I hear guys talk about sentimental stuff, it always kind of resonates with me because of that kind of stuff. Because I love that shit, man.
Similarly, and you just mentioned it, so I'm gonna bring it up, this Wolverine from Secret Wars.
Yes, Secret Wars.
I
Hell yeah,
had that Wolverine from
yeah.
Secret Wars. It's the one figure I have lost from that collection.
Oh
I
wow,
don't to my for the life of me, I don't know what happened to it.
Yeah,
But I bought this, and I was like, when I got it out of the package, I'm like, "Oh my god, this is the same coloration and everything."
they nailed it. They
Yeah,
did.
they
Yeah,
nailed it, and I'm like, I'm so glad I bought it
yeah, hell
because
yeah.
I'm like, yeah, there's some nostalgia there, but and I have a brown costume Wolverine that I'm perfectly happy with. It's just this is the Secret Wars Wolverine,
Yeah,
which, again, yeah, I have an emotional attachment to that. That's a tough one for me because it's like I hate going back,
mm,
you know? It's
yeah.
like there are some figures I really love, like that Wolverine, but it's like I don't want to find the original. I want something slightly improved.
Find it slightly improved. Yeah,
Yeah.
dude, I'm at a point now, and I'm glad you brought that up because when I got the Savage Dragon and I bought it, obviously because he was only $5,
Oh,
but
good, good.
yeah, my immediate thought was, "Fucking hey, this thing has no articulation." Like my immediate thought was, "It better be $5. This thing don't move." Yeah. So I was like, I remember thinking in my head in that moment, I would love to have this updated.
Yeah.
So if they like made a new Savage Dragon with like a great like now I'm a customizer now, so I like to customize toys.
Mhm.
That was my second. So my first thing was fuck, I wish this was updated. And the second thought was, why don't you do it?
Yeah.
So like now that's where I'm at. So, but like I said, when those nostalgia things hit you, man, and like I
Yeah.
said, you find them. They have such a like that Wolverine too. I didn't get that one because he sold out so goddamn quick. But I was disappointed because, like you said, that's a spot on Secret Wars
Yeah.
Wolverine toy.
Yeah, I love that line, as short-lived as it was, but it
Yeah,
was, I mean, it was like, "Whoa!" Finally, after Mego, we had some, but it was like, "Oh, now we have some more," and then
hmm
it was, like, short-lived, and then we got the Toy Biz 5-inch line, which was like, "Oh, cool, we got some more, Marvel
yeah,
toys," and that lasted as long as I mean, it lasted several years.
years. Yeah, it was a few years. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now let me ask you the next question. We're in a new landscape, right?
Mhm.
There's fucking, I mean, everywhere you turn, there's somebody coming out with a new line here, there, whether it's independent, a third party, wherever it is. Everybody's coming out with something. Currently, what would be your favorite go to?
Well, I would probably say Action Force. Uh,
Really? Okay.
yeah, Valaverse, because I I don't know how popularized this story is, but I found about Action Force right about at Series 1,
Okay.
and I had a really what I thought was a good friend who said, "No, they're fragile, don't buy them." But then I kept hearing about it and hearing about it and hearing about it,
Yeah.
and I was like, "I'm gonna try this for myself." So I bought Trigger.
Yeah.
It was Series 2 at this point.
Yeah.
I bought Trigger. I didn't hate the figure, but I wasn't super impressed, but somehow he grew on me.
Okay.
And then it was like all of a sudden I found myself liking these figures. And I'm like, well, what's the story behind it? And I read the story and I'm like, oh, that's good.
I get you. A good
That
story
got
gets
me.
you,
Yeah,
doesn't
stories
it?
will get me every damn time. If you have a good story, you'll get me.
Yeah.
And then I started really grabbing up everything I could on Action Force.
Yeah, they're good figures. I gotta agree. I
Yeah.
tend to agree. Well, if you're gonna go independent figures, to me, best one, or they're up there. Number
Yes.
one is Action Force of Alaverse.
Yeah.
I didn't like. I read bits and pieces of the comic. I never actually read it all the way through. But
Hmm.
what I did read, I enjoyed. I liked.
Oh, yeah.
And just remember buying GI Joe Classified and
Hmm.
thinking to myself, these are too specific. Like, in other words, like, Roadblock is Roadblock, this one
Hmm.
is this, I need, um, just, soldiers.
Right.
And when I discovered his, it was, I don't know the name of them. Scabbards? They had the fishbowl heads?
Scarab.
Scarabs, okay. So the
That's the
scarab,
one that's one of the figure that's one of the figures I've always wanted that I've never gotten.
yeah. So I saw those, and I was like, "Oh, those could double as, like, aims or Hydra
Mhm.
agents or something like that, and I can keep them here." And I always when I do lines, I always buy one figure, test it out, see if I like it, then I'll start to buy more. So
Yeah.
they came. They had their problems. I'm not gonna lie to you. They were very stiff. Their hands fucking. You had to use pliers to pull them out.
Yeah.
But I did my research and I read that he addressed that,
Yeah.
Bobby Vala, and I was like, okay. So I was like, that's enough for me. I will buy more. So then I bought, like you said, Trigger. I bought Trigger, Duster, and
Hmm.
Rollout.
Yeah.
Okay, and all three of them showed up, and I liked all three. Like all three of them were pretty good figures. They were
Yeah.
very good figures to me, and I was just like, um, these are perfect for the mercenaries or like just random soldiers that I could use. And then when he started coming out with his army builders, that's when I was just like, all right, this might be the independent company that I go to for all my army men, if you
Yeah.
will. Like if I'm gonna buy GI Joe nowadays, because I've like, listen, I got caught up in that bullshit and FOMO, and I'm out of it. But like it'll be specific characters of GI Joe that I remember. Like, oh, heavy duty. He was one of my favorites. I'll grab him. You know, but
Hmm.
I'm not gonna army build. I'm not gonna do all that shit. If I am, I'm gonna go somewhere where they come with a bunch of shit, bunch of extra hands. That's really what sells me. I'm a sucker for accessories. So if you throw
Hmm.
hands, guns, a vest like Bobby Vala does, like Monster Force has been doing, then you're like, all right,
Yeah.
I understand the $35 price tag. I'll pay it. It's not a big deal because I know that I'm getting a really good figure with very good accessories. So like that's one of the things where I love army men because you can use them anywhere. If you're doing photography, stop motion, or even if you're setting shit on a shelf and you just want to have like a set on like or like a scene on a shelf, um, you can pop those guys in Batman. You can pop them in Marvel. You can have them fight Superman. You can have them fight each other. You can have them fight GI Joe, Cobra. They fit in literally every and any aspect
Right.
of your toy shelf. You can fit them into, and that's one of the things that really was the selling point for me. Like, cause I
Yeah.
didn't read the whole story, but I read enough to be like, I like these army men. I'm in.
Yeah. I just enjoyed the storyline in the
Yeah.
comic.
Right.
I got the book. I enjoyed that.
Okay.
That apparently, from what Bobby says, that turns take some turns that he did not intend, but treat it as an Elseworlds tale. That's what I say.
That's
I'll
fair. Listen, sometimes you don't
yeah,
expect it to go in the way it does, but
right,
stories sometimes write themselves. You
right,
just
yeah, and I even said to him, "Is like, yeah, let's do an alternate reality." But I just got my Series 5 in, and I love
hell yeah.
Siege. He's right here.
My
I,
favorite one. My
that
favorite one from
that's my
out.
favorite one from that series too.
Yeah,
I really love him.
yeah.
And like I kind of did a opposite what most people do. People say, "Oh, I buy Action Force to augment my GI Joes," and I'm like, I buy a GI Joe Classified to augment my Action Force
Of course. Yeah.
because there's a line on Slaughter's file card. If you notice, he was um, tasked with anti-terrorist groups in the '80s, and I was like, hmm. So now he's a grizzled veteran. He's talking about GI Joe right there.
It definitely is. That is definitely the
Yeah, so I pull those guys in and I say, okay, this is the old Joes who survived the Cobra War, and it's just my favorite characters only.
characters. Hell yeah, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, and then they survived the Cobra War, and then they're helping Action Force. That's how I incorporate. So yeah, Hasbro needs to thank Bobby for sales of Classified for me.
For yeah.
Yeah, because
Not just for
I'm the
you.
kind of
I'm
guy.
betting. I'm betting, willing to bet that he had to help with a lot of revenue with Hasbro
Yeah,
in terms of all this stuff. Because like I said, that the army men will never go out of style to me.
right.
So the army toy will never be boring. It'll stand the test of time because they defend our country. They defend everything. So that, to me, they're always like one of all of our superheroes in a sense. So
Right.
those toys will never go out of style to me. Um,
I
and
agree.
and the fact that he made his own version, and just gave us an option. You
Hmm.
like GI Joe, collect GI Joe. You're not being a GI Joe, but you like Army Men. There's another there's another option for you. It
Well,
is more like
I'm also the type of guy who thinks when a line is born, it's in a scale. To me, Action Force is 112.
oh yeah, for sure. Yeah,
G.I. Joe: A Real American Hero is 118th.
I see what you mean. Yeah,
Yeah, and I have a little issue with it changing scales. Now you can do things in another scale and be okay.
Yeah, yeah,
I have the same thing with Black Series. It's like, yeah, okay, you get a couple of characters in another scale, it's fine. Kind of like the 12-inch Star Wars figures back in
yeah,
the 70s. That's fine, but this exists in this scale to me,
yeah, yeah.
and whatever
See,
the line may be, you
I
know,
agree, but I think, like, I'm always one of those guys where it's like, you can make both.
yeah, you
You can
can.
have the 118, collectors collect those, 'cause those what is the 25th anniversary ones, they were updated, they're not
Mhm.
O-ring.
Oh,
Those are really nice figures.
those are those are some of my the GI Joe anniversary figures are some of my favorites
Yeah, those are really nice.
of GI Joe. It's like, okay, they stumbled a few times with the first couple of waves, but like once they got their stride going, damn,
Yeah,
those were great, and they're
yeah.
still some of my favorite figures in my collection.
Do you, are you collecting the Joy Toy ones that they just started coming out with?
I dabble,
Yeah?
but I don't get too many. A lot of it is, they're a little generic.
Okay. Yeah.
They're good background characters,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
it's like I don't feel like that ownership of like Roadblock or
Yeah,
Clint
yeah.
or Lady J or insert name here of this character I really love.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. For me, it has to, you do a character I love,
Mm.
I will pay attention, at least pay attention.
Yeah.
And then
I
it's like, okay, how's the figure? Okay, if the figure's good, I am on board.
Yeah. It was just like, it was like Wednesday when I was on 3POA. I don't collect Hot Toys at all. It's just
Me
too
either.
expensive, too risky for the price. And when he showed that Terminator,
Hmm.
I was like, "Hmm."
Yeah,
I was like, "Ah, well, if I was gonna dabble, this would be this might be the one that gets me to dabble."
yeah. Terminator's one. It's like I will at least consider it.
Yeah, you gotta
Yeah,
pay attention,
but
yeah.
again, it's like Hot Toys and Mezco. Yeah, there's some
They're a
things.
low price. Dude, I have a hate like I always say, hate-hate relationship with Mezco.
Yeah,
Their customer service sucks, and they don't treat people, they don't have an like, they I don't know. I believe that you shouldn't tell people you only have a certain amount of action figures, and then a couple months later, all of a sudden, they get re-released again.
yeah.
Like,
I
I
heard your story about them. I've never
yeah.
gone anywhere near a Mezco.
Yeah, no,
I
don't
don't plan
it's not
to, especially after seeing what Bobby went through with the '89 Batman.
and Jerk and Gaines went through something too.
Yeah,
Like, Jerk got, what was it, Doctor Nocturnal or some shit for the both of them,
yeah,
and he got boned on it. I could the character could be wrong. If Jerk sees, I'm sorry, I don't wanna quote him, but I
right.
just do remember he got screwed over too. The
Yeah.
same
Now,
way the same way they got me with Conan. I was so
yeah,
dude, I love Conan. He's my one of my favorites, and when they screw me over and just the absolute like, arrogance in which they handled it
hmm,
was what really turned me off because I bought Mezcos all the time. I loved the figures, but
right,
you don't treat someone like that and expect them to come back, man. And listen, I know you don't need my money. That's fine, but
right.
I don't need your toy. So, like, I'm just one of those guys. I was like, I'll just I'm okay paying $25 for the Hasbro version of Spider-Man. I don't need the Mezco's version. Or I'll go buy if I'm going to give a lot of money to a Spider-Man figure, I'll just go buy Mafex.
Yeah.
Because at least I know
I
what
mean,
I'm going to get.
I've got a couple of Mafex,
Yeah, they're
and
pretty good.
I
Not
like
bad.
Batman, Superman, Magneto is one of my favorite
Yeah.
figures of my 112 scale lines. That is a really cool figure, but it's like I don't go there very often.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah,
don't either. Because it's just one of those things where it's too expensive
yeah,
to me.
yeah.
And I'm
It's like,
like, I got that Superman. Did you get the Hush Superman? Is that the one you have?
yes, I have the Hush Superman, and I heard your story about it. I'm so sorry.
Well,
I
it
am
broke
so
my heart,
sorry
bro.
because mine does not have that problem.
Yeah, it broke my heart.
Mine is so awesome.
Yeah, and and the funny thing is because when I took it out of the box and I'm sitting there like, and you you know when like the thought hits you, but you don't want
Uh-huh.
to believe it, because I'm like touching, like, I'm moving his arm, and I'm like, no, it can't be that. No, it's not. These are supposed to be good. It can't be this loose, right? And I'm just
Right.
like. and you're hoping that maybe it might correct itself by putting it in a certain position, and all of a
Mhm.
sudden maybe the pin falls in. I
Yeah.
don't know what the fuck I'm thinking, right? But it didn't do any. I was literally screamed to the sky like Captain Kirk,
Oh,
like
I'm so sorry,
ah, and I was so
man.
fucking angry. Oh man, I was angry about that.
I don't blame you. I mean, that Superman is one of my favorite characters too, and it's like when I got that Hush Superman, I was like, "Wow,
It's a
this
good
is
Superman.
so
It looks
great."
so good. It does.
Yeah.
I totally agree. But um, what led you to YouTube? What made you decide that you were going to start making some videos and voice your opinion about the toys and stuff like that?
Well, originally my channel was more of a gaming channel,
Okay.
gaming in art, like tabletop gaming.
Yeah.
There was a game called A Song of Ice and Fire,
Okay.
which is based off of what Game of Thrones is based off of. I
Yeah.
really love those books, and it was like they would do, you know, armies of that, and I started out doing that, and then I did a little bit of Dungeons and Dragons, and
Okay.
you know, I wasn't so hardcore into action figures yet. It was just like I was just kind of, I'd pick up an action figure here and there, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to rebuild this Marvel Legends collection, and I went, it might be interesting to add that to the mix.
Hell yeah. Looks like
And a couple of things happened with the Song and Ice and Fire game. One thing is they raised their prices, the quality went down. Dungeons and Dragons, I don't think I need to explain what's going on there. It's just a bunch of crap. They got rid of orcs for crying out loud.
that's crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy to me too. And like, so, my interest in those is still there, but not currently.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
what's being released. And so it kind of shifted to action figures, which was weird. Um, so it probably hurt my channel a little bit because my focus shift.
No,
But
no. Because what happens is you start down one algorithm,
yeah.
then you skew to another. So you
Yeah,
just
but I
zero.
was like, that's when I said I'm going to go hardcore into this
Yeah.
rebuilding my Marvel Legends collection, and I thought it's going to take about 5 years, and it took me maybe two,
Yeah.
2.5, but I didn't want to do videos with like, oh look, here's his knee,
Yeah.
you know. It's like I would see those and I'm like, okay, I will watch those if I'm like, should I buy this figure?
Figure. Yeah.
But I'm not going to watch it for entertainment value.
No, man. No.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, I want to do something different. And I try to talk about, if I do a single video of a figure, I'll try to talk about why did I buy this figure.
Yeah.
Like I've just shot this one, and I talk about, you know what? Yeah, it's that Secret Wars aesthetic, and it was like, yeah, it's the same color, everything about it. There is a nostalgia for me,
Yeah. Yeah.
which I try not to be too nostalgic, but at the same time, we all get hit by it.
Sometimes you can't. It just blindsides you.
Right. Yeah, it's not the same reason I bought the CT Toys Wolverine.
Oh, you
You know.
got that, huh? Did you
Oh
like it?
yeah.
Did you get a good one?
Yeah, oh, I love it. It's really, yeah, that's right here it is.
Yeah, it's a
I
cool
love
looking figure. I know
it. It is a
Woody
cool
bought.
looking figure. It's like that's Wolverine to me. Right
Yeah,
there. That's the Wolverine I've wanted for a while, and I'm good with it.
I might have to. It was one of those things I just didn't want to buy because it's $16, and when you see that price tag, you don't believe that it's going to be that good. And then I saw
Yeah.
Woody bought three of them, and he said all three of them were fucked up. And he bought the Spider Man, the CT black suit
Uh-huh.
Spider Man, and the 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 pelvis was so big that the body just it was like weird. It didn't look right. Yeah, so I was like, it's like a 50-50 with that, and that was one of the
Right.
things where it kinda swayed me away, but I every time I see, like, you just put it over, a few other people put it over, the Savage Land, I'm always like, I might have to give it a chance because I love Wolverine. I have mostly
Yeah.
all of the Wolverines. The only one I don't have are literally the 2 you just showed, and I'm
Uh-huh.
like, might have to try. I mean, for $16, if it's a bad figure, at least, it's
Right.
16 bucks. You didn't really,
Yeah, I took the gamble. I think I paid 20 for it, but
that's not bad at all. It's still
the only thing I had an issue with was the peg in the left hand
okay.
was reversed.
Oh,
And
shit.
it took me a while to figure this out
Okay.
because I'd put the claws on and it would just fall right off. And I'm like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
And then I figured out the peg is a different size.
Uh,
So I had to pull it out, switch it around, and then it worked perfectly.
perfectly. All right, that's
Yeah,
good
and
to
there's
take
a
down.
small issue with his knee joint that if you bend it, you got to make sure that you don't catch it when you put it
Oh,
back.
okay. Okay.
I mean, but I'm like, look, going, it's a $20 figure. I'll deal with the knee joint problem.
But that's
You
the
know?
thing too, when the price tag is right,
Yeah,
you'll all right. Yeah, and I'll deal with it. You know,
yeah,
it's not a big deal. It's when you pay, like I said, $100 for a Superman figure, and he comes and
right,
you can't put his arm up, and you're like, dude, what are you doing to me here? Like, I mean, this was a lot of money. If it was a
right,
C2, it was $20. I would be like, all right, no big deal. Now I got Superman for $20, you know. But
right.
I don't like that shit, man. I don't like when they beat you in the head for the big price tag. Uh,
But yeah, if you just want a good, I mean, I've heard a few issues with some people having with that Wolverine figure,
yeah,
but I've not had those two issues are the only two issues I had, and it
I
was
had,
like easy fixes, and it's like
yeah,
easy get around.
yeah, that's awesome, dude. All right,
Yeah.
well, let me ask you the final question, as I ask
All right.
everybody. Do you see a shelf life, no pun intended, on your collecting days, or are you riding until the wheels fall off?
Okay, so yeah, we didn't get around to this, but like, so 1987 comes around.
Yeah,
I'm 16 years old, and GI Joe the movie is hit, and I'm like, Cobra Law, nah, I'm out. Plus, I'm 16. I'm supposed to, you know, not worry about this.
man, it's time to get grow up or
Yeah,
whatever.
so I bought a few from 1987, like Falcon, Law and Order. I said, oh, these are cool for the collection, but I don't think I'm going to do this anymore. Just
Yeah,
I'll just have this as like, oh, these are my childhood memories. So go on into 1988, and then I see a commercial for the Swamp Masher Storm Shadow version 2, which was
yeah,
the big one for me,
yeah.
and Shockwave. And I'm like, all of this is cool. So I will just buy these and just be done with it. That did not happen. I bought almost everything from 88, 89, 90. I bought a whole lot from G.I. Joe, and I'm buying G.I. Joe. And like, I just was like, then Power of the Force 2 hits. Then 5-inch Toy Biz hits.
It's yeah,
Then Marvel Legends hits. And G.I. Joe versus Cobra hits. And it's like, I'm in this for life. I just made
yeah.
the
I think I'm
it's
fucked.
like, yeah, I'm just doing this forever. And I have hit some very slow down points, you
Yeah.
know.
Okay.
When my daughter was born, for instance, that was a big slow down point because you got a new baby.
Gotta be
You
responsible.
got to
Yeah.
be responsible. Even though I was like, in my 40s, I have a new baby. Um, I mean, you have slow down points, but it's like, and you have pickup points, like I
Well,
did when
yeah.
I decided to get this Marvel Legends collection back together, which I think I'm hitting the end of finally because Hasbro hit the big notes for me. It's like Death's Head, Man Thing. It's like those guys were big characters I wanted.
And you
Those
already got
C-list
'em.
characters again from the 70s and 80s. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, you win me over with that, but okay, Marvel Legends, you don't have a lot to offer me anymore.
Yeah. Were you surprised when you saw Death's Head? Because I was
That
shocked.
shocked me
Yeah.
because
I was like, "What the fuck?"
in my one conversation with Bobby Bala, I found out he worked on Death's Head
Oh, wow.
for the Marvel Universe line.
Oh, shit. I had that toy.
Yeah, I love that toy because it was Death's Head. I thought I'd never see a Death's Head figure in my lifetime.
Yeah.
And I was so overwhelmed, it's just like, wow, and it was my favorite from my 118th Marvel line.
Yeah.
I never thought they'd put that in the Legends line, and then they
Yeah.
did. And yeah, I crossed that paywall for it because I think that was way overpriced. But you know what? It's Death's Head, dude.
Yeah, where you gonna find it? That's like
So yeah, I mean, short answer is I don't think I'll ever fully stop. I may slow down, which but I think I'm at a slow down point now because another thing you and Avi were saying is like you said, I've got all the characters from Marvel I want, and I am the same way.
yeah.
I mean, there's a couple you're gonna win me over with if you could do them.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
off the top of my head, Meteorite from Thunderbolts.
Okay.
Yeah, I love that. I love that first 25 issues of that series.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't think about. that and Thunderbolts. They think about the later series.
The later ones, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but that series where it was like the bad guys were like playing superheroes, I was like,
Yeah.
it's really cool. I really love it, and yeah, that one might win me over.
That's what
But
they got me just recently with the X Force 2-pack, only because X Force was my favorite
yeah,
comic as a kid. Now, I don't get me wrong, doesn't have to be a 2-pack. You know,
hmm
you could have sold them separately. I don't need it like as a 2-pack, but I need to complete the X Force.
hmm
Like it's been my one of my goals since I started collecting action figures, and they never made a Warpath, and they finally made them, and that was
yeah.
like
They made a Warpath for X Force in Marvel Universe
yeah, yeah.
because I
Because
have that.
I had completed because I sold my Marvel Universe a very long time ago,
hmm
but I had basically that whole line essentially
Yeah,
completed. Like I had everybody I needed. I had all the X-Men, all the Avengers, X-Force, everything. And then when I essentially when I graduated to 6 inch, right? Um, I told myself you have to complete X-Force because that was your team. Whenever I was reading comics, um, I loved that one because that's an older one. That's like '07, if I'm not mistaken. That specific team. So when I was at work, my time was literally reading those comic books all the fucking time. That's all I wanted to
yeah.
do was read those comic
I
books.
may
So
do the 2-pack for X Force on mostly for X-23 because I
X-23.
don't have a really good X-23.
I already have the one that they came
Yeah,
out
I
with,
have that one too.
but I'm gonna listen. The 2-pack is good, and I'll just sell that other one. I don't really care.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. The only other one I need is Nightcrawler, and he's in the other wave. They just
Right.
released, so I'm gonna grab him when I get a chance. Um, but
I'm
yeah,
gonna
man,
pass on that one. I will admit.
the only reason I'm gonna get him is because he's just in the X Force colors, and I can stand him with the X Force. It's literally
Yeah, I hear you. I understand that kind of want to complete that line. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um, but Rob, it was an absolute pleasure to talk to you today, bud. Thank you
Hey,
so much for coming through to hang
thank
out.
you. By the way, one thing, a couple of things I wanted to say to you. One thing was when my daughter was in the hospital over Christmas. Well, she got out just before Christmas. You gave me a laugh I needed. You were doing Alvin and Chipmunks, and you did the Macho Man voice with
Oh,
Alvin filter. I needed to laugh so hard that night because it was like I was so worried about my kid, and thank you for that, just so
uh,
much. Thank you.
buddy, you're so welcome. I'm glad
Yeah,
you like it because my wife can't stand the Alvin voice.
when you were doing Macho Man though, I fell off my. I sit on. I was in my bedroom sitting on my bed, and I literally fell off my bed laughing. And I needed it. I really needed it that night. And another thing I want to say to you, um, like, kind of a one-two punch was I've had a lot of bad experience with online people,
Yeah,
and my Thon, our mutual friend, kind of pulled me out of it a little bit.
yeah.
And then you did it too. You just one night said, "I came on here to make friends," and it was like I suddenly realized I am making friends.
That's it, bud. Yeah,
Yeah, and it's like I want to. So glad you're added to that list.
man. Oh yeah. Well, I listen. I'm going to say to you that I say to every guest that comes on this program, you have a friend for life, bud.
You
So
too.
if you ever need me, I'm here, man. It's like I said, it was an absolute pleasure. Every time I do these episodes, I'm always um nervous going in, but so happy and ecstatic going out because not only did I overcome the anxiety of talking to somebody new, but I made a friend at the end of it. So just to
Man,
let you know, brother, I appreciate you, man. So thank you for
man,
coming on.
I told you, I'm nervous about this because you do such a fine program,
Thank you.
and I was like, I'll be the first bad one.
Nah,
That's what I was thinking in my brain.
nah, you did a great job, but this was a good episode, man. Don't ever think that for real.
Cool,
So I appreciate you, man. You guys can see Rob over on his channel at Robert's Infinite Realms. Like I said, there he talks toys, comics. He breaks down a lot of stuff, and he's got a very great take on a lot of the stuff. So go over there and check him out. You can also check him out on his Instagram. Robert, I didn't ask you. Do you do any photography or anything like that, or are you just a collector?
I dabble in photography, but I'm not like, it's not a priority. It's like,
Something you do when you're bored or whatever.
Yeah, it's like if I'm messing with a figure and I'm like, oh, this will be a cool shot, I'll do it.
Okay.
But it's not like I do things daily or weekly or anything like that. It's
Well,
just like, oh, this is neat.
let me take a picture.
Yeah, yeah. It's like I did one with this. I bought this for comedy. I really did, but Helverine.
Wolverine. Yeah,
Yeah, I read that story. I thought it was the dumbest story I've ever read.
for sure. Even when I
Yeah,
saw that toy, I
but
was
I
like,
bought but I bought that figure because I think it's so funny, and then I had him fighting Sabretooth. It's like something like that hits me. It's like, yeah, I'll do that.
okay. All right. Well, catch Robert over on his channel at Robert's Infinite Realms. Like I said, he's a great dude. He's got a great channel over there, and he has like great takes on everything. You can catch us every week on here. Next Friday, we'll be back at it. We're talking figures. But until then, this has been this week's Talking Figures. That is Robert. I am Tony. And until next time, keep playing, everybody. Peace.